Hi, I'm North Thorne from the Time for Rolling Guild. This is Vainglory Analytics video 8, Tiers and Flares. Unlike the past few videos, this one is going to be nice and short. I'm going to be sharing a very specific story in this video, a story about tiers and flares. But a second reason that I'm showing you this video is to make sure that you know about a cool opportunity for you to explore some data on your own. One of my other projects in the Vainglory community is Vainglory University. You can get to it at this URL, which I will put in the description of the video below. The website gives you some, hopefully, entertaining computer-generated coaching about your past matches by comparing them to a database of about 3,000 archived matches in ranked queue across all skill tiers. But as long as the website has that database of past matches, it might as well let you explore the statistics it computed from them. On the top right of the main page, you can click this link right here to explore the data yourself. You get a page that looks like this. In this dropdown, you can choose one of the statistics that the Vainglory University website has computed, and then use these dropdowns to decide whether or not to limit your query to specific skill tiers or roles, and the distribution of that statistic will be shown as a histogram on the right. Alright, hold on. Let's slow down in the technical jargon. How about an example? Let's say I'm skill tier 7, and I often play carry, and maybe I'm curious what a typical CS is for that role, to know how I'm doing compared to others. When I choose those options from the dropdowns, the site gives me a graph that looks like this. Along the x-axis, we see the various CS values that were achieved by players in that skill tier in the matches in the database. And the graph spikes for very common values and falls down for very uncommon values. For example, here you can see that 112 to 134 is the most common range of CS for tier 7 carries. But the really bad performances get as low as 0 to 22, and the really good performances get as high as 200 to 220. I say good performances and bad performances, not good and bad players, because all these players are the same skill tier, but we all have good matches and bad matches. The interesting little tidbit that I recently got from this data query page is about flares held by captains across the skill tiers. The stat in question, more specifically, is called percent of time carrying flares or flare gun or contraption. That is, for what percent of the match was the captain holding at that moment a way to flare a bush? Here's the histogram for that stat at tier 1. The spike on the left means that less than 10% of the time was an extremely common value. Well over half of the roughly 200 Tier 1 matches had the captain carrying a flare or flare device less than 10% of the time. Probably most of those are actually 0%, because in Tier 1, people are just starting. Way back when I was just starting to play Vainglory for the first time, I didn't know what flares did or why you'd want them, so I never bought any. Probably these people don't either. Here's the histogram for the same stat at Tier 10. It's the complete opposite. Well over half of these matches had the captain carrying flares almost all the time. One match even had the captain carrying flares 99.02% of the time. If it was a 20-minute match, there were maybe 12 seconds where the captain didn't have a flare or flare device. That's some dedication to vision. Let's watch all 10 graphs slowly change from Tier 1 to Tier 10 in a little animation. I bring this topic up because it's so actionable. If you're a captain and you want to play more like a top-tier captain, here's one very easy change you can make. If you're not carrying flares all the time, start doing it. And of course, use them to reveal what's in a bush or behind a wall. Top-tier captains don't carry flares without using them, of course. One interesting question we can ask from this data for people who don't play captain is, at what tier you can start expecting your captain to have flares handy most of the time? If we rewind our little animation, we can see that the tipping point happens roughly in Tier 6. Here in Tier 5, it's more likely your captain will never have flares than it is that they'll always have them. Then in Tier 6, it shifts ever so slightly the other way. By Tier 7, captains often have flares most of the time. It's also pretty interesting how bimodal the data is for many of the tiers. Either you have flares a lot or you have them rarely. Very few players carry them half the time and not the other half of the time. I think I'm actually one of those captains. Whoops. I think I just taught myself something in this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon with more Vainglory Analytics.